Welcome to 12-Step Guide with Troyo. Today we will be reviewing Step 6, Part 2 from the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. Last video we covered the first half of the chapter, and now we will jump right into the second half.
Page 66, second paragraph. Let's think back when we were working out of the big book. Step 4, fear list. Column 4, didn't exist. There was something missing. We covered it. We built a fear list. We built that column 4 out of the step book. Column 4. If you've seen the videos, you would recall that. If you haven't seen that video, then you wouldn't. Now we are going to target that column again, specifically, but it also will bleed into other columns. So there's going to be some examples here. I want you to be able to follow what's going on here. And this also further supports the work that we did in finding that column. He wouldn't cover it twice in this step book, 13 years after the big book came out, if it wasn't pertinent to the process. And he's going to begin at some rock bottom examples of what character defects can look like. We'll shed some more light on column 3 as well as the other lists. I'll use a couple of examples. So we'll start the reading and then we'll take a peek at it. Some who feel they have done well may dispute this. So let's try to think it through a little further. Practically everybody wishes to be rid of his most glaring and destructive handicaps. No one wants to be so proud that he is scorned a braggart, nor so greedy a braggart, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, nor so greedy that he is labeled a thief. No one wants to be angry enough to murder, lustful enough to rape, gluttonous enough to ruin his health. No one wants to be agonized by the chronic pain of envy or to be paralyzed by sloth. Of course, most human beings don't suffer these defects at these rock bottom levels. But Bill brought it up, so let's take a little gander at the list. Lustful enough to rape. Let's consider both sides, both people possibly, depending on who's doing a list. So maybe that column 3, failed self-reliance. One couldn't control themselves, another maybe couldn't protect themselves. Maybe failed self-confidence. One person might be afraid, another's also afraid they can't trust themselves. They can't, or haven't. That can change. X, resulting in humiliation, another one on that list. It could be upon yourself or the other person. X led to calamity. That's disaster, tragedy, misfortune. And have you been a good person? Let's use another example. Gluttonous enough to ruin his health. Now, there's a download, I had said it before in the last video of step 5 that covers all these and has all the lists if you haven't seen the other videos. Gluttonous enough to ruin his health. That's to consume in excess. Maybe there's some failed self-reliance there. Failed self-confidence. Hey, cocky gone wrong. Maybe. Potentially an act resulting in humiliation. Maybe it's affecting your health. The act led to calamity, potentially. Is there a lack of courage to change? Have I been a good example? These things at column 3 and 4 might apply to each other. For example, Bill brought that up, so I thought I'd take a look at the more harsh things for a second. Page 66, last two paragraphs. We who have escaped these extremes are apt to congratulate ourselves. Yet, can we? After all, hasn't it been self-interest, pure and simple, that has enabled most of us to escape? Not much spiritual effort is involved in avoiding excess, which will bring us punishment anyway. But when we face up to the less violent aspects of these very same defects, then where do we stand? I believe that's a part of answering this true humility. Might we have taken a different path, if not for the consequences? How close to the edge are we? Are there things we might benefit in changing? If only we don't do things because of the consequences, does that tell us something about ourselves, for example? Last paragraph. What we must recognize now is, again, that now is, I think, is more true humility, to recognize now that we exult in some of our defects, jubilation, joy. We really love them. Who, for example, doesn't like to feel just a little superior to the next fellow, or even quite a lot superior? Isn't it true that we like to let greed masquerade as ambition? To think of liking lust seems impossible. But how many men and women speak love with their lips, now about sex list, and believe what they say, so that they can hide lust in a dark corner of their minds? Question mark. And even while staying within conventional bounds, many people have to admit that their imaginary sex excursions are apt to be all dressed up as dreams of romance. Well, since he brought it up, let's talk about it. So, that greed in column 4, he talks about greed here. He has it relating to ambitions in column 3 of our resentment list. Maybe that's driven by envy. For example, a little cross example of how the list could interconnect. And really, the getting into the now about sex, imaginary sex excursions, whatever. In the sex list, what wasn't necessarily addressed, for example, is this area. Here's some questions. What are your sexual fantasies or romantic fantasies tell you about yourself or others? Question. It's a question. I've got some ideas here. Is there anything of concern there? Are there any unresolved issues trying to reveal themselves in this environment, this imaginary sex excursion environment that he speaks of? In addition to identifying good or bad feelings and attempting to understand moral conflicts within this environment, this is happening somewhere in the individual. Nobody else is aware of it. Nobody can see in your mind. Nobody knows what you're entertaining, visioning, fantasizing, unless you talk to somebody about it. So understanding moral conflicts. Look deeper for spiritual or instinctual avenues, as it is a safe theoretical environment, unless it isn't. Only you can determine that and restore excesses of concern. So within this safe theoretical environment that you are aware of, this romantic or sexual fantasies, look deeper. There may be information there that can help you understand yourself. There may be messaging going on there. There may be things that relate to other things, and it may require you to look at the moral conflicts, to look at some of the other things going on and try to understand them. So we've done a lot of work on column 4 in the fear list. Bill's going to get into these. So it's considered 7 deadly sins. There's more, but these are some primary ones that have the power to potentially kill. So Bill's going to use some examples. We'll move on along a little bit here. Self-righteous anger also can be very enjoyable. In a perverse way, we can actually take satisfaction from the fact that many people annoy us, for it brings a comfortable feeling of superiority. You annoy me, therefore I am somehow more superior than you are, is the basic concept here. Gossip, barbed with our anger, that's intermixed with anger, a polite form of murder by character assassination, has its satisfaction for us too. Here, we are not trying to help those we criticize. We're trying to proclaim our own righteousness. Somehow that we're morally right or justified. There's this process, you annoy me and I'm somehow better than you, I'm morally right over you, this process that we can look at in our list and contemplate that. Next paragraph. When gluttony, pursuit of excess or greed, is less than ruinous when it doesn't destroy us, we have a milder word for that too. We call it taking our comfort. We live in a world riddled with envy, want what others have. To a greater or less degree, everybody is infected with it. From this defect, we must surely get a warped yet definite satisfaction. Else, why would we consume such great amounts of time wishing for what we have not, rather than working for it, or angrily looking for attributes, things in us we shall never have, instead of adjusting to the fact and accepting it? If there's limitations, in knowing my limitations, not wasting energy trying to be what I'm not, that part of that true humility, so you can be strong in what you can be. And some of it's discovering that there's things in myself I didn't know I was capable of, those things, good things. For example, when I was getting sober, and how often we work hard with no better motive than to be secure and slothful later on. Only we call that retiring. Planning how good it's going to be. You ever done any of that? Or how great it's going to be down at the bar tonight? Or how great the party's going to be? Or this is going to be great? Oh, it's certainly, planning is good, but this concept of planning how great something's going to be in the future is something we want to be careful of. Now, an attitude, how great sobriety is going to be in the meetings and getting through these steps because it's going to work for me is a great attitude towards success, right? That success is important. So, just an example of slothful consideration, working towards retirement. Consider too our talents for procrastination. Maybe you're stuck on step one, for example, which is really sloth in 5 syllables. Nearly anyone could submit a good list of such defects as these, and few of us would seriously think of giving them up, at least until they cause us excessive misery, where that natural step 6 might lead you to a formal step 1. Moving on. Some people, of course, may conclude that they are indeed ready to have all such defects taken from them. Page 68. We're on the beginning of that now. But even these people, if they construct a list of still milder defects, will be obliged to be morally bound to admit that they prefer to hang on to some of them. Therefore, it seems plain that few of us can quickly or easily become ready to aim at spiritual and moral perfection. We want to settle for only as much perfection as will get us by in life, according, of course, to our various and sundry vague ideas of what will get us by. Maybe if heading down to the bar is the best you got, that's a pretty limited possibility, for example. So the difference between the boys and the men, now we touched on that the first paragraph opening in here, is the difference between striving for a self-determined objective, a limited goal, and for the perfect objective without limit, which is of God. Removing those limits, not accepting those limits, what a limited life addiction can offer. And even there's times it can appear to give, but then it takes. And only you can determine where you're at. Maybe many of the things you really would like to have, you can have without practicing the addiction. Many will at once ask, how can we accept the entire implications of step 6? Why, that is perfection. This sounds like a hard question, but practically speaking, it isn't. Only step 1, where we made the 100% admission we were powerless over alcohol, can be practiced with absolute perfection. The remaining 11 steps state perfect ideals, maybe a best possible future outcome to strive for. You got to have an idea what you're striving for, and it should be realistic. They are goals toward which we look, and the measuring sticks by which we estimate our progress. Seen in this light, step 6 is still difficult, but not at all impossible. The only urgent thing, now something's urgent here, what could it be? Is that we make a beginning and keep trying. This requires immediate attention or immediate action. Make a beginning, keep trying. What if the person who's relapsed, what was the message I had now Johnny, stay at the back of the meeting and your humiliation while the rest of us on step one can feel just a little superior to you. Well, no. You come on up to step 4 and you get yourself through into step 6 here. And you know what? And if you somehow don't now know that you're alcoholic or not, you're still at step 6 having to reason that out in a natural format to consider that to come on back to a formal step 1. Either way, you want to be at this place resolving these character defects without missing the working of the other steps. Each one of the steps, all 12 of them, work hand in hand. But this language is clear, urgent, make a beginning, keep trying. Even in relapse, keep trying. You've put work in, understand what you've missed, understand what you've done wrong. Yes, go to meetings. Yes, talk about that stuff. Yes, raise your hand and admit to these things. But that's what, an hour a day. If you were someone like me, you're doing 2 a day. So 2 hours. What's of the other 22 hours? Well, you can be working on these formal steps, understanding yourself, moving in a real direction forward towards true humility, right? Cut the shit, right? I mean, honestly, right? There's a way to get here and a way not to. And let's try to avoid procrastination, for example. And I hope that this is helpful so that you have clarity and understanding. You can see what the path is, because there's a lot of bad information out there. Everybody's not stuck at step 1. I mean, there's plenty in the meetings doing good work and stuff. Just there was a large message coming in for me to stay on step 1 for a year back in the day. Now I'm going back a long time here. Has that changed? Hopefully this information helps you be able to set your course. It's individual program. You do what you think is right. Moving on. Page 68, third paragraph. If we would gain any real advantage in the use of this step on problems other than alcohol, these problems, by the way, could be what's driving your alcoholism, we shall need to make a brand new venture into open-mindedness. This brand new venture could be addressing another issue in step 1, even a simultaneous issue. You might need to deal with a couple of things together because one's feeding the other or driving it. Maybe even more than one 12-step program. We shall need to raise our eyes toward perfection, towards this ideal that we have set, this best possible future outcome that we've outlined with some real work and without limitations that we choose to place on ourselves, and be ready to walk in that direction. Willingness. It will seldom matter how haltingly, how hesitant we walk. The only question will be, are we ready? Fear of the unknown can slow us down. Bad information can slow us down. Hopefully, this is helping you find your path. Last paragraph, page 68, going into page 69. Looking again at those defects we are still unwilling to give up, we ought to erase the hard and fast lines in looking to give up those that we're aware of. We ought to erase the hard and fast lines that we have drawn. At least know your strengths and weaknesses. Perhaps we shall be obliged, compelled, in some cases still to say, this I cannot give up yet. But we should not say to ourselves, "This I will never give up." So, what might subtle reservations look like? Things that maybe we're aware of, maybe we're not. Except I'll keep despising those people. I'll place myself better than them in my heart. I'll keep uttering hate from my lips. Does it show up in your recovery? Will you allow it to roadblock your chances for success? And why? Exactly. Do you know exactly why? Do you know exactly why? Not what your parents thought, or some book taught you, or you just never knew another way. Do you know why? What does it tell you about yourself? For example, page 69, last two paragraphs. Let's dispose, to rid ourselves, of what appears to be a hazardous, dangerous, open end we have left. A trap, maybe. It is suggested that we ought to become entirely willing to aim toward perfection. We note that some delay, however, might be pardoned, might be excused. That word, in the mind of a rationalizing alcoholic, justify, bargain, could certainly be given a long-term meaning. He could say, "How very easy. Sure, I'll head toward perfection, but I'm certainly not going to hurry any." Maybe even stuck on step one. Maybe I can postpone dealing with some of my problems indefinitely. Of course, this won't do. Such a bluffing of oneself will have to go the way of many another pleasant rationalization, excuses, justifications. At the very least, we shall have to come to grips with some of our worst character defects and take action toward their removal as quickly as we can. This is a program we want to move fast to get up into this stuff where we can actually do something about it. The moment we say no, never, our minds close against the grace of God. Delay is dangerous, and rebellion, to resist, may be fatal. It could kill us or someone else. How many are in jail knowing they were alcoholic, didn't change, could have changed, maybe didn't, just looked the other way, didn't care, or other issues out there where others were hurt or we were hurt, and it could have gone differently. This is the exact point at which we abandon limited objectives and move toward God's will for us. So we abandon limited goals, move toward God's will for us. We strive toward that which is perfect to the best of our ability. Got to strive in some direction, some model. It's best if we could strive for the best model we could possibly envision and head in that direction. Limitless possibilities based on true humility. I want to cure for my drinking so that I could drink in safety. The absurdity of that concept, the alcoholic thinking. I need to cure my drinking so I can drink again, right? Anyway, empowerment, strength, freedom from addiction, freedom from the obsession. Pursue who we can be by creating a plan and willingness to let go of who we don't want to be. And some of them limited objectives, again, can be, I'll keep despising whoever. I'm better than them. Voicing hate, thereby limiting yourself, for example. Unlimited objectives refuse to embrace limits which we place on ourselves. Because you know what these are? Anchors. They're weights. They're clear limitations. It's addiction. So that is the end of step 6. We will be going into step 7 in the big book. And step 7 was light, also like 6. But we're going to find you some pertinent information in there. And we'll take that same process to develop a foundation. So when we go into step 7 in the step book, when Bill had some much clearer ideas, we'll be able to understand that. I encourage you to embrace step 6. I hope that you see the immense value, the strength, the truth of it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Otherwise said, we have begun to embrace true humility. We have developed a realistic understanding and clear recognition of who and what we really are. We acknowledge there are stubborn defects that did not fall from us in step 5. We develop a deeper willingness and an action plan to take into step 7 to free ourselves of those things blocking us from true recovery. For by now, the 9th step promises have begun to show themselves.